Hey folks, today I've got a new water pump and a new thermostat going into the Honda Accord, and I thought I'd turn on the camera because it looks like an interesting one, because I'm looking at the service data here for water pump replacement, and step one's drain the engine coolant, remove the drive belt auto tensioner, but then step 4 is remove the turbocharger. And then if you look at the instructions for removing the turbocharger, step 4 is removing the three-way catalytic converter. So they want you to remove the turbocharger and catalytic converter to replace the water pump. On previous generation Accords, this was a really easy job, but it sounds like it's more of an ordeal on this generation. So let me show you why. Okay, so here you can see the water pump. And on previous generation Accords, all the bolts came in through the front of the water pump, and you could just move the pulley around and access them through the holes in the pulley. But on this generation, you can see that there's actually two bolts that come in from the back, this one here and this one here, that come in from the back of the water pump. And the problem is getting to those is a real problem, and that's why they want you to take off the catalytic converter and turbocharger to get access to those two bolts in the back. But I've been scoping it out, and I think I might have a way to get at them without having to do that. So I was curious to look up what the estimated cost of this repair would be. So I looked it up at repairpal.com, and they estimate that the water pump replacement on this 2018 Accord LX is between $1,200 and $1,500 for the estimate. That's 74% labor. Makes sense, there's a lot of labor with taking out the cat and the turbocharger. So that works out to be on the high end of the estimate, $1,100 in labor. Sounds about right to me given the labor rates at dealerships in the Northeast. And then the thermostat replacement is another $435 to $500. You probably get a little bit of savings because obviously the coolant changes in common to both of those. But overall, you're probably looking, at least at a dealership, at close to $2,000, I would suspect, in this area anyway. So definitely a good repair to do yourself if you're handy with the tools. So looking at the front of the engine here, the water pump sits way down in there. I don't know if you can see it. You can just kind of see the pulley down there. And the problem is on the front of the engine, we've got the turbocharger here and the catalytic converter, and those prevent us from getting to the bolts in the back of the water pump easily. So that's why they recommend you take all of that off. But I've been scoping it out, and I think I've got a way that I can access those bolts without taking off the turbo and the catalytic converter, so I'm going to give that a try. Alright, so we'll start by freeing up a little space here so we can get at the water pump itself. There's a little clip here, and then the top of the windshield washer tube comes out. Okay, and then we'll want to get this intake tube out of our way. So that's that 5.5 millimeter socket. And this should just pull out of there. And next we'll remove the next segment of the air intake tube. See if we can get these tubes off of here. And then it looks like there's just a couple bolts holding the intake tube down here. So let me see if I can just get in here and give it a little nudge. There it goes. Okay, and then there's a bracket here, and my idea is that I think if we remove some of this stuff, we can get in from the back and sneak that bolt out from the back, from behind the catalytic converter. So to do that, I think it'll help if we remove some of this stuff here. We're going to remove this little bracket. It's like it just holds the O2 sensor wire here. So get that disconnected. There's a little fastener right there. Alright, now we'll just set the O2 sensor line up there, and then there's a bolt, I think a 10mm on the bottom, that holds this bracket in place. Oh, it's not a 10mm. It's a 12mm. A little bit of a rough spot to get to. So that's just that one bolt that holds that on there. Alright, probably the thermostat, now you can see, lives right down here. So maybe we'll want to get rid of this other oxygen sensor wire, just get it out of our way and keep it safe. Maybe tuck that in there. And then maybe it'll help if we remove this bracket, and then I'm thinking the catalytic converter heat shield there. So there's one 10mm bolt here. So that comes off. And then some 12mm bolts on the heat shield here. Alright, I moved you up on the front of the hood of the car there, so hopefully you can see better. So there's one bolt on the side there for this heat shield. And there's one in the front here. Trying to drop this down in there. Almost out. Oh, and there we go. Dropped it down in there. Gotta go grab that. So this is the heat shield there. Oh, lucked out. It fell right through and landed in my bucket down there that I've got to catch the coolant when it comes out. Okay, so then, like I said, my hope is that I can get in there behind the catalytic converter and get that bolt out of the back of the water pump. We'll see how that goes in a few. Okay, so now I've got you set up on the left side of the engine, and you can see the water pump pulley that we're trying to get to. There's this little bracket here for the coolant bottle. I think I'll pull that out just to give us a little more room here. Just two little bolts in that. And that little bracket comes out of there. So then my plan here is to remove this intake tube. So this is what brings the air into the turbocharger, and that kind of loops around. So I think if we remove that, we can get access to the top of the water pump. There's a little wiring harness here. I think there's a little clip on the bottom. You pull that down and that'll sneak off of there. And then there's a little connector here we can remove. So free that up. I think that should be okay there. And then there's a couple of air lines that go to the, I think they go to the turbo bypass solenoid, so we'll have to remove those. And it looks like down on the side there's a couple 10mm bolts there and there that hold that the tubes in place there. So let's get those out of the way first, disconnected from that intake pipe. Alright, so that's that one, and then there's one down on the bottom there. Okay, so those are all freed up there. So I think we can now sneak the intake tube out. Disconnect this tube here. Free that up so it'll come out once we pop this up out of there. And then there's two bolts. Let me see if I can get you a shot of those two bolts that hold this intake air tube to the turbocharger. Okay, so I've got you up in the front here. Let me just show you those two bolts. So there you can see the bolt on the one side, and there's the bolt on the other side. So it looks like those are both 12 millimeter bolts. Actually, I guess one's a bolt and one's a nut. So one on the left side for you is a... Oh, let me get a little shorter extension. So the one on the left side is a bolt, and the one on the right side is a nut, it looks like. Alright. And so I don't drop this one, I'm going to reach in and grab it out of there with a magnet, I think. Okay, so there's that one. And then there's a nut on this side. Not sure if I can get my hand in there or not. Oh yeah, just barely. Just don't want to drop that nut. Those two tubes are a little bit in the way. Actually, maybe what I'll do is just disconnect those for now. That might give me a little bit more play to get in there. A little more room. Alright, let me see if I can get those two tubes a little bit free here. Slide that off a little. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, that'll help a lot. Let's see if I can get this one moving a bit. Alright, I think it's turning. So I'll pull that off. There we go. Okay, so that'll give me a little bit more access to get in there easily. Okay, that helps a lot. Probably should have done that to begin with. And I'm just going to grab that nut so I don't drop it. Okay, and now I think if we free this pipe up, yeah, this whole turbocharger inlet pipe comes up out of there. Okay, so there's a electrical connector here. Let's see if I can remove that. And then there's this little heat shield here, and I think if we remove that, we might be able to see down behind the water pump and see that bolt that we're after. Squish my finger there. Oh, that'll work. Oh, come on. There we go. Almost there. Okay. There's the bolt. And here's the little heat shield that was in there. Okay, now let's see if we can get in there and just see if we can see the bolt there. Alright, so I've got the mirror just taped on there with a little bit of electric tape for now to hold it in place, and let me see if I can get you a good view of the bolt we're after. So that's looking in the mirror from the back, and that's the bolt. And so my plan is to be able to look there at the mirror and then access it from the back with a long extension. But with having the mirror there, I'll be able to see if I'm on it and, you know, line it up when I put the new bolt in. That's the plan anyway. Alright, so next I want to just get in there and remove the drive belt then at this point. So I use this gear wrench serpentine belt tool. I've got a video on it. If you're interested, you can look that up. So I won't show you the details here, but just releasing tension on the tension arm and then wiggling it out of there. And then I'll start the coolant draining. There's a drain plug if you look in the top of the engine. Down there you can see the drain plug, and then there's a hole in the splash shield on the bottom, and you can just put a container under there and open that drain plug up. So that's what I'll do next. If it hasn't been opened in a while, it's probably a little tight and you might need to use a pair of pliers to get it going, I suspect. There we go. Alright, and then we'll just let that drain out into the pan I've got down on the bottom here to collect it. So that's what the little drain plug looks like. Okay, so next we want to take off the tensioner pulley. So there's two bolts for that. The first bolt is right here that we can get from the top, and then the other one we'll have to get from the bottom. The tensioner pulley just overlaps the water pump by a little bit. I don't know, maybe you could even leave it in place, but probably make our job a little bit easier, and it's only two bolts to get it out. So, it's pretty long. So I think I mentioned it's a 14 millimeter. And then we'll get the other one from the bottom, from the wheel well. Okay, so we're in the front right wheel well. And there's a couple of clips to pull this little panel off so we can get access to the lower bolt on the tensioner. Okay, so now you can see the bottom bolt on the tensioner. It's a 12 millimeter. Get in there and see if we can crack it loose. Pull that out of there. Now the whole tensioner should come out. Okay, so next there's a bolt here we're going to have to remove to get this wire harness that sits in front of the water pump loose. I think it just comes off of a clip there. And then there's a bolt in the back of the water pump there, so I'm going to remove this water line or coolant line in order to get better access to that. Okay, hopefully you can see in there, that's that wire harness bolt that we're going to have to remove, and then this pipe that I want to remove too to get better access. Okay, and that bolt has a little washer on it there. It's different than the other ones, just to keep you from squishing that the plastic of the harness, I think. And then I think, okay, that just pulls up. So I think we should be able to sneak the water pump out from behind there now. Let's see if we can get this water line off of there. Didn't realize so much was going to drain out. You'd probably be better off to put a little hose on there or something and to drain that out through. So given the amount of coolant that comes out of there, you might want to be more prepared than I was and have a little tube to just drain it out so it doesn't drain all over and make a big mess. So I'll just put a little tube on there and let it drain into the bucket here. But probably not too big a deal since it's going to be kind of a mess once we get the water pump out anyway. Try to catch some of it. So maybe we'll start with the worst fastener first, which is that bolt in the back. So my plan is to go in with an extension from this side and then use the mirror to line it up. I'll probably point you at the mirror so you can see what's happening on the action end, and then I'm going to fish it through. I am using some of these inserts that you put in the end of the socket that are magnetic to hopefully hold that bolt so I can pull it out. But I'll probably, once I get the bolt out to there, I'll probably just reach down in here and grab it out with a magnet so I don't lose it. I really don't want to drop that in there anywhere. Might be hard to get back out. So, all right, I've got you set up looking at the bolt through the mirror, and I'm going to sneak in from the other side, from behind the catalytic converter, see if I can get my socket with the extension on it. Looks like it's close. All right, let's see if I can loosen that up. Okay, there we go. Now just to make it easier, I'll make sure it's loose. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of my ratchet and just use the extension. Have a little bit more dexterity so I hopefully don't lose the bolt. Alright, so hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on there. So now I'm just going to reach in with the socket, get on the bolt there, loosen it up. And just make sure my magnet's got a grip on it, and then I think I'll just pull it out a little bit. I think I can get on it right there and then just pull it up through the opening. Hopefully you could see that on the camera. That's what the bolt looks like that's in the back there. Okay, then there's one bolt that comes in from the back. These are all 10mm, by the way. Right, so that's the next bolt. Alright, and so then next, the final three bolts are right here, here, and here, right up in the front. So those should be the easy ones to get to and get out. Okay, that's one. Another loose. So that looks like that one. We have to get through the hole in the water pump pulley. Hopefully you can see that okay. Alright, so let's pull these out. Okay, so now the water pump should be free. I'm just going to put a little bucket under there. Try to catch a little bit of the mess anyway. Okay, so I think technically it should all be free to come out of there. So let me just give it a little bit of a pry and see if it's loose. Oh, there we go. There's the rest of the coolant coming out. And there's the old water pump. Okay, so now with it removed, you can kind of see in there, see what we were up against a little bit better. You can also see into your turbocharger, which is kind of cool. How often do you get to see that, right? Okay, so I've got the mating surface all cleaned up nicely where the gasket's going to sit. Pretty happy with how that looks. And I rinsed off down below with some water just to get some of the coolant off that's spilled down there. And now it's just time to put the new water pump in place. A couple of these bolts in the front just to hold it in position. Okay, so you probably couldn't see that with my hand there, but I just did, put those 3 bolts in there, and next I'll put the bolt in that goes in the back there. So I'm just going to put it on the magnet and then kind of see if I can slide it into place. And then pull the magnet out. I'm just going to see if I can start it with my fingers. It's a really tight spot to get to there. Okay, I'm just going to get in there and just snug that up just a tiny bit. Okay, so just snug. And I'll just snug up those front ones just a bit too. And then we'll go for that tough one in the back. Okay, so I've got the bolt that goes in from the back on the end of an extension. I put a piece of electric tape in there just to make sure it stays in there nice and tight. I'm going to reach in from the back. I'm going to zoom you in through the mirror. So there I think you can see the hole that we're going for from the back, and that'll help me line it up. Hopefully you'll be able to see it okay. Obviously I just don't want to lose that bolt down here. That's the big thing. So hopefully you can see that okay. I can get it lined up in the hole. There we go. Nice. Let's get that a little bit tightened up in there so it stays in there. So the torque for the water pump bolts is 12 Newton meters. So I'm going to be using this nice quarter inch Tecton torque wrench. It's really handy for getting in really tight spots. But for that bolt in the front there, it's so tight that I can't even get in there with that. So I'm going to use a torque adapter, which just extends it. I'm sure it'd be fine if you just tightened it with a wrench and just didn't go too crazy because it's steel into aluminum. But when I put these videos on YouTube, I like to do things as much by the book as possible. So with the adapter on it, you have to adjust the torque. And so we'll have to measure The distance from the end of the wrench to the handle is about 7 inches, and then the adapter adds about 2 inches. So we'll have to adjust the torque, and the adjustment factor is the length of the handle, the 7 inches divided by the 7 plus the 2. So that's about 7 over 9, which then punching that into the calculator here is about 0.78. So that means that we have to reduce our torque set in on the wrench to accommodate the longer extension by a factor of 0.78, or that's like minus 22%. So multiplying out that 0.78 times the 12, it looks like that's about 9.3 Newton meters. So with the extension on it, I'll just reduce the torque to the 9.3 Newton meters to make up for the fact that I've got the extension on it. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I've got this really handy, I got to show this off here. I've got this really handy little adapter. So it takes a 1/4 inch and makes it into 3/8. But the nice thing is it's really tiny and you know, sits right on the end, so it lets you get in really tight spots because it doesn't add the overhead of a usual adapter. It's kind of fun. Okay, now I'll just go around and torque them down to the 12 Newton meters. Which isn't a lot. I mean, the 12 Newton meters is not a lot of torque. Okay, and then drop it down a little bit to our, what do we say, 9.3 for that one we'll do with the extension. I know you're probably laughing because it's a little bit silly, a little bit overboard, but put it back on the 12 and do the one in the back. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can slide in from the back with my torque wrench here. See if I can get on that bolt in the back there. Okay, I think I'm just about on it. Okay, there we go. And now I can just torque that one in the back. Okay, so 12 Newton meters on that. Alright, so with that in, we can put the tensioner back in place here. Actually, I think we got that out from the bottom, so maybe easier to reach up from the bottom and put that back in. Alright, let's see if we can slide that into place here wherever it goes. Alright, let's see if we can get the top bolt through it. I think I got it there. Now I just want to go down on the bottom and make sure I can, you know, put the bolt loosely in place there for the bottom of the tensioner. Okay, so we're down on the bottom here, and then we've got that. And the torque for that one is 24 Newton meters. And then the torque for the top tensioner bolt is 55 Newton meters. Okay, now we just have to, I think, put everything back together. Make sure this little wire harness, it snaps into this little holder in the front, so make sure that's where it needs to be. And then remember there's this the bolt with the funny washer on it that goes in the harness on the front there. Okay, and then don't forget you've got that coolant line to reconnect down here. And get the clip back where it goes. Okay, and then we can reconnect this connector down here, the electrical connector. Alright, and then we've got that heat shield that goes back in there, remember. Okay, so snug that up. And now I think we're ready to put the turbocharger air inlet pipe back in place. So there's a stud on the one side. This tube reconnects here. Grab an extension here. And then there's the nut that goes on the back there. And then the torque spec on the the bolt and the nut on the turbo input air duct there is it's 24 Newton meters. Okay, and then we've got these the two lines that go over to the bypass solenoid. That we'll have to put back in place here. So we'll hook both of those back up first. And put the clamps back where they go. And then this little guy down here. And then down on the side here we've got the two bolts that just mount that the bracket that holds those tubes to the intake pipe for the turbo. We'll tighten those two down. Okay, and then I think the last thing over here is to just put this electrical connector back in place. So I think that just slides on the end here. And then clips back on over here. And I think we're mostly tidied back up there. Okay, I think I'll put the serpentine belt back on now while I'm over here. And I've got a video showing how to do that if you're interested. There's a little hole in the tensioner arm that holds the tension off of it that I think makes the process a little bit easier. But anyway, I do have a whole video on it if you are interested to check that out. And you can just come in there and release the tension, pull out the bolt, and then put the tension back on the belt. Okay, and then there's just this little bracket that holds the coolant bottle there that you want to put back on. Snug that back in place. And then before you forget, put this clamp back where it's supposed to go. Okay, then you're supposed to drain and refill the coolant reservoir up to the max mark. Put that back in place. And clean off this hose and hook that back up. And then it does clip in the front there. And then we can put the windshield washer fluid connector pipe back in place there. And that hooks onto the pipe too. And just has the little pop-in clip there. Clip it into place. Okay, so next we have to get to the thermostat, which is down here. So I think we're going to have to take off a little bit of stuff. I think we're going to have to take off the air box here to get a little bit better access. So we'll disconnect the mass airflow sensor here. And unhook the fastener. So let us get that out of the way. We'll have to take off this little air inlet duct, and that's just got a bunch of these little clip fasteners. Four of them there, and I think this just pulls off. Okay, and then there's some fasteners on here. Oh right, so the one in the back is not a bolt, it's just a pull fastener. We can pull this electrical connector up a little bit just to give us a little bit of play. Okay, let's see if we can get it past there. Okay, so that just pulls up out of there. Here, so there's so here's the thermostat. There's one bolt here, but then there's another bolt here, and it's this bracket's in the way of getting to it, and then there's another one down on the bottom there. Hopefully you can see that down on the bottom. But I think we're gonna have to remove this intake air pipe in order to get at that back fastener. Alright, so there's two bolts in here that hold this intake air pipe in place. Let's see if we can get those out of there. Okay, then I'm thinking we don't need a lot more room to get in there. I'm thinking if I just disconnect the intake pipe up in the front. I can leave all these wires connected and just move it over a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to get in the back there and loosen that hose clamp. Again, that's where the air pipe goes into the intake manifold in the back here. And then there's two pipes. I think these go to the coolant pipes go into the heater core. Just pull those out to give it a little more flexibility. And then let's see if we can just wiggle that free. Okay, so that end's free. Yeah, so now we'll just be able to pull it up out of there and we'll be able to get to the bolts we have to get to. Okay, so I stuffed some absorbent material under there, so hopefully I won't make as much of a mess as it did on the other side when I take the thermostat out. Let's just see if I can kind of gently get it wiggling a little bit here. Oh, look at that. So the side I'm prepared for, nothing even comes out. It's all drained out. Probably just because it's a little higher up or whatever. Okay, so now we should be able to get in there and get the thermostat out. Okay, and then there's just that one other one in the back. Get a little shorter extension. Alright, now the thermostat should just pop out of there. So there's an O-ring here. Make sure you get it out. Make sure you have a new one on your new thermostat too. Yeah, so our new thermostat does have the new O-ring already installed in it. I'll just make sure that mating surface is nice and clean there. Looks good to me. Then we can just put the new thermostat right in place. And these bolts have a little sleeve, so make sure the sleeve goes right through the hole in the thermostat before you tighten it down. Show you what I mean here. So you can see this little sleeve there that just goes in an enlarged hole in the thermostat. Again, I'm sure so that you don't crush the plastic when you tighten it down. Okay, and then the torque spec on the thermostat bolts is 12 Newton meters. And this small torque wrench is really handy at getting into those tight spots like that. Okay, looks good. So now we can put the coolant pipe back on there. And the clamp slid all the way down to the bottom here. And then we'll put the clamp right back where it goes. So one handy thing to know that I learned recently is on these Honda pipe clamps, there's actually a mark to show you how tight it should be tightened. So you tighten it until the band end comes back and lines up with that little, hopefully you can see the little pink mark on the clamp, and that's the correct amount of tightness for these. Okay, so I'm just going to wiggle this pipe back on in the back here. It's just a little bit hard to show you since there's not a lot of room. So let me just show you what I was doing up there. Hopefully you can see in here okay. And you can see that that band there, and you can see the end tightens down to the mark. Hopefully you can see that. Alright, I think we should be in good shape to just put things back together here. I guess we can start by just fastening this air line back in place there. I think the air box can go back in now. And then the little air inlet pipe here. One more little connector there. Okay, I think that's good. And then we've got the top of the air box here. And then that, and then yeah, don't forget to hook the mass airflow sensor back up. And speaking of not forgetting things, it's probably a good time to put the drain plug back in, so you don't forget to do that and fill it up with coolant. Alright, I think we're almost done. I think we just have a few more things to put back together in the middle here. So you've got the heat shield that goes on the cat. Just 3 bolts on that. One in the front's a little bit of a pain to get to. Okay, who remembers how this little bracket fits in there? Let's see. Oh yeah, it looks like it goes right like that and protects this connector maybe. Okay, and probably a good time to get the oxygen sensors hooked back up. Looks like that one clipped in there. and then clips in up here. It hooks there. And then we had this other little bracket that's stuck out somewhere here, right here. Okay, so what's next? I guess we've got the little connector pipe that goes in here. Tighten that down while I'm thinking of it. Okay, and then I guess before we fasten it down, we can put the other oxygen sensor line. It's got a little push connector that goes in there, and then it comes over and hooks this electrical connector, and then that hooks on this bracket there. And then these two lines will go there, so I think we're in good shape. Okay, and then last we just have to put this air tube back on here. And put those clamps back on. Okay, and I think we're all back together, and I don't see any parts left over, so that's pretty good. And one last thing, don't forget, as I was just about to hook these lines back up here. And this one here. Alright, so the Honda service manual says to just fill up the reservoir bottle, which you already did, up to the max line, and then fill the radiator up to the filler neck. So I'm using the Honda Type 2 coolant. I think it's 1.6 gallons when you change the water pump. Might be a little bit more where we took off that pipe from that tube that connected up to go to the turbo there. Maybe we drained a little bit more than usual. Alright, that's 1 gallon in there. Alright, let's see how much more it needs. Okay, and then the Honda directions for the coolant, hopefully you read that, for the engine coolant air bleed is to loosely install the radiator cap, start the engine, let it run until the cooling fan comes on at least twice, so we'll heat it up to temperature. Do not operate the air conditioning system. Then just turn off the engine, check the level in the radiator, and add Honda coolant if needed. So we'll do that. Well, not to take you for a little ride, but the coolant fan did come on, so, and it did go down just a little bit, so I'll just top it off with a tiny bit. And I guess we'll call that good. So that's all there is to replacing the water pump and thermostat on your 10th generation Accord. Definitely harder than previous generation Accords in my opinion. But I still think it's easier doing it that way than it would be to pull out the turbocharger and catalytic converter. But let me know what you think. I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching.